horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review as I continue my kind of marathon of extreme horror films, or more so extreme horror films. And for this review, we're going back to Germany because this is yet another film written and directed by Olaf Ittenbach, who's a director that I did not really know about until just recently, like when I started doing these videos, like this marathon. I've done No Reason, Prometheus, and now for this, probably his most well-known or most talked about film. Some people think it's his first, but it's actually his second. His first was Black Past from '89. This actually came out in '92, but the back says '97. I think that was when it got its wider release, or when it was released on video in other countries. But it is none other than The Burning Moon, which this was a DVD put out by Intervision, which is kind of a sub-label of Severin, so technically this is a Severin release. But the one thing that Intervision does that I really like is they do a great job at recreating these vintage VHS kind of releases, which is why, as cool of a cover as this is, with just a gore collage, as cool as that looks, I'm always a sucker for classic vintage VHS art, so that's the one I have it as. And so this review is probably going to be very similar to my review for Prometheus, because this isn't really an extreme film. I mean, it's more extreme than your typical gore film. I can say that. This is definitely another Olaf Ittenbach splatter film. It is gory as hell, very bloody, very graphically gory, but it doesn't really have any extreme content like, say, No Reason did, or does. And also, before I get into that, some people have been mentioning more films by him. I do have almost his whole filmography on my wish list. These were the main three I wanted to get. I will get to his other ones like Garden of Love, Black Past, Darn Divorce, I believe it's called. I'll get to all those at one point. I know of his filmography, so I know. But yeah, this, even though it does have one sexual assault scene, kind of quick, that's probably the most extreme thing that happens. But it really is just another splatter film. And of course, written and directed by Olaf Ittenbach. He, I guess, is the main character. It's kind of different because this is an anthology. We have the wraparound, and then we have two stories. And Ittenbach kind of serves as our host, or the person telling the stories. It's basically this young, I guess, teenage heroin junkie in a dysfunctional family, left to babysit his younger sister, so he reads her two bedtime stories that are horrific. That's it. And when he first gets high off heroin, he looks up at the moon and it looks like it's on fire. And I guess I'll go through the cast, even though I'll probably butcher all of the names. I did recognize one person. I believe his name is Andre Strier, if I pronounce that correctly. He played Hugo in Prometheus. But Ittenbach also served as, I think, the producer. He did all the special effects. He did all the stunts. He couldn't afford a stuntman, which I guess he suffered several injuries during the making of this by doing that, including some testicular injuries. But, yeah, I just want to get that one guy's name. He was the only one that I recognized. Andre... Yeah, Ittenbach plays Peter. Andre Strie. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But yeah, he's in the second segment. The music, did he also do the music? Because I don't... A.G. Stridle, who also did the music for Prometheus. But yeah, so like most of his films, or at least his earlier ones, this very much is an Itmog production, doing most of the credits. Again, directing, writing, producing, I'm sure the editing, effects, stunts, starring. It's an Itmog film. And yeah, it was shot on video, which might sound surprising that I did like this film because I'm not the biggest fan of shot on video. Every shot on video movie I've seen, uh, I've either hated or just thought it was mediocre. I think Prometheus was shot on video as well, but that looks a bit more polished and refined. This is definitely shot on video. I'm not sure what the budget was, and apparently this is still banned in Germany and has been since '93. And I think it was banned in the US for 20 something years, banned in other countries. It basically just is a gore film. I don't know how well you'll be able to see some of these, but and yeah, the the first act, which is the setup of this character, is kind of laughable. It's just how much of a degenerate this Peter character is, having a bad job interview, meeting up with his friends, and having this sort of Clockwork Orange or Outsiders fight with a rival group. Then he goes home, fights both his parents, he even pushes and shoves his mom, fights his dad, gets mad when he says he has to babysit his sister, then gets high, they leave to go do something. But it plays out like the shot on video look and just the overall tone of it, it feels silly. It looks and feels silly. It almost feels like a some educational thing you'd watch in school. Like, this is Peter. Peter's going for a job interview. Peter has a bad reputation. Peter will not get the job. Don't be like Peter. It has that kind of over the top bad acting. It does have some kind of inventive, what I call Sam Raimi camera shots. I mean, after he's told to watch his sister, it shows him sitting on his bed playing with a slinky. And there's like this camera angle down by him, so when he goes like this, it's like you're looking up the slinky. I thought that was cool. Also, this shot here, where an eyeball is shoved down someone's throat, it's like the camera is in their mouth, so you see it go in, and then I guess a huge esophagus was actually built for this. This big red tube, the camera at the bottom, so you see the eyeball just kind of go down it. Doesn't look realistic at all, but the thought of it was cool. The first story plays out kind of silly as well. The tone of the two stories are drastically different. The even in the wraparound, the opening of the wraparound is very silly. It does have a very light-hearted yet gory first segment, a very melancholic, dark, depressing second segment, and then a downer of a closing bookend. But the first story is called Julia's Love, which is about this kid. Well, actually, before that, I'm not sure what this was supposed to mean, but after he's told he gets in a fight with his dad, there's like this flashback to these two young boys playing together, and then the dad comes up and pulls his kid away, saying like, I told you not to play with this one. And then the other kid just looks sad. I don't know if that was his dad saying don't hang out with that kid, or the kid's dad saying don't hang out with Peter. And it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't really establish that this family is that dysfunctional, other than just how he fights with his parents. Refers to his sister as that bitch to his parents. But anyway, a kid whose family was killed in front of him by his grandfather. He went on to become a serial killer. He's in a psychiatric clinic. He escapes and goes around killing people, but he's in search of a wife. He wants to live a normal life, so he's got to have a wife. So he finds this woman, Julia, who goes on a date with him. Date goes well. He's giving her a ride. She hears on the radio that this guy escaped. He's in this stolen car. She knows it's him. She flees. And then it's him going to her, then killing her whole family, trying to get to her within her house. And yeah, some things are nonsensical, and I would say it's meant to be a horror comedy, but it's definitely more lighthearted. It definitely has that sort of off-kilter Peter Jackson feel, which, as I said in my video for Premitos, Peter Jackson, to me, Olaf Ittenbach, to me, is like the German Peter Jackson. The second story is definitely... I would say Premitos was more of a Peter Jackson film. This one, even though it does have some gory effects happening with kills, a lot of it is just more gags and stuff lying around, like body parts lying around. A lot of aftermath type stuff. But anyway, like after Julia flees, he picks up a prostitute, kills her immediately. Then at a red light, he decapitates her, throws the head through his moonroof on the car behind him. And the killer in this segment kind of reminds me of Ricky from Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, because he's acting over the top. He is kind of like, Julia, you gotta let me in. Like, trying to be intimidating, but in a very goofy, silly, over the top kind of way. And yeah, he kills her family. There's this great shot, great effect when he sends a machete through her dad's face. Her younger teenage sister, bashes her head against the bathroom wall, a ton of times, then sets her on fire. Then we have the chase throughout the house, and the ending of the segment kind of comes out of nowhere. A guy shows up, shoots him in the head, which explodes. And the effects, like, because he's on top of her, about to stab her. So all the brain matter stuff that fell on her kind of looks like chili. It's a very wet, sloppy, splattery, gory movie, which I love. The second story, there's more to it. Kind of all over the place, really. It starts off with this woman who's attacked, raped by this Dennis Rader looking guy. Before he kills her, he spouts how you are the purity, you are the light. The segment's called The Purity. Shoots her in the head, but then we find out he's also the priest. He's the local priest. And I had to laugh because she has an open casket, but no one touched up the bullet hole wound. So, yeah, they didn't feel the need to do that. And Hugo from Premitos plays this farmer who everyone thinks is responsible for the deaths of all these girls that's been happening around the village. He seeks the priest for help. The priest tells him it's going to be all right. And I don't know if this was intentional, but when they talk about previous murders, they mention a girl named Elvira and a girl named Abel Ferreira. I don't know if that's a reference to the male director of Driller Killer. Elvira's an obvious one, but... And, eventually, he kills more people. He goes to a guy's home, kills him, abducts his wife, does this, satanic ritual, and drinks her blood. Through flashbacks, it takes place in 1957. Flashbacks, we see his father told him he wanted him to be a priest, but then he got all these satanic visions. So, I think he ended up becoming a satanic priest, like on his own, but he became like a Catholic or Christian priest to the outside world. And he keeps telling this guy, Hugo from Prebitos, that everything's going to be fine. Tells people keep beating him up, attacking him. Then one guy, Frank, is paid to kill him. And the guy that plays Frank looks like Olaf Ittenbach. I actually thought it was him, but it's not. And when he kills the guy, when Frank kills Hugo, I mean, it's brutal. A lot of it is off screen. I mean, he hits him with the head with a hammer a bunch of times. Then he just kicks and stomps and kicks and stomps. And then he gets down and he just punches and he punches and he punches. And then he just like ape beats. And yeah, a lot of it is like when he's done with the hammer and he goes from the kicking and the stomping to like the ape beating. It is off screen, but you know it still had impact. It was still visceral and brutal, and you have this depressing, sad, very melancholic music behind all of this, which does make the impact a bit heavier, because it is this poor innocent guy who the whole town is against, and this guy just brutally killing him. But then that night, I don't know if it was something that the priest had to do with or what. It kind of felt all over the place. Maybe there were some things I missed. But it seems like the spirit of Hugo rose, which was a cool shot. Kind of looks like the cover of Prebitos, where it's like the blue of the light with the smoke and fog, and then he's in a silhouette. Goes to Frank's house, and then just as he attacks Frank, he goes into like this negative film look, and he's sent to hell. And we do get this really cool, very different depiction of hell that I've ever seen. I mean, it looks like a farmhouse or like a warehouse, very small scale. And this is the absolute gory crown jewel of the entire film. This whole hell sequence. I mean, well, actually, I'll save that for later. You have dead bodies everywhere. I mean, bodies with, you know, skinned faces and torsos, so the ribs are exposed and they're all red and bloody and like just glistening in blood. You have intestines and guts everywhere, body parts strewn about. You have some hell people wandering around like zombies. You have some people, like these two kind of executioners, because they take Frank and they put him on this table in like a vice, which I like how it goes from this dingy sort of farmhouse kind of look for hell, but with some like barrel fires in different areas. Also with the constant sound of women screaming and babies crying just echoing through the background, which did help the atmosphere. It goes from that to this almost sterile look, almost like a medical room with all these shiny silver implements, like a corkscrew and then like a bigger kind of screw like what you would have for the ground. You have this one guy who, how well you'll be able to see that, but like his face is mutilated, his eyeball is completely exposed with nails driven into it, but the eye keeps going like this. Then this other guy in a red robe with like this domed helmet that comes down to here. He's got like these big demon fangs. And this happens to him. Well, first they put the corkscrew in his eye, and then they drill his teeth, and you see that. The sound is really well done. And then you get like this sort of Hellraiser-esque chains wrapping around his ankles by themselves. the chains pull, and it doesn't just pull his legs off. I mean, it completely splits him up the middle all the way up to his head, which is that effect. You know, leg, split here. There's the rest of his body. It's actually on the cover as well. I mean, and then when it gets up here, everything just spills and pours out. I'm really kind of downplaying the depiction of hell because there is a lot in it. There's a lot of effects. And what I mean by aftermath is a lot of that stuff is lying around. I mean, the stuff that happens to Frank, those are great effects. And then the people with effects on them are like, there's this one guy or person with like a green cap and his face is all distorted and warped and gory looking. It really does, you know, it really is worthy of having just this gory, messy collage just with everything strewn about. But then Frank wakes up, and I actually don't even remember how it ends. I just got done watching this too. How the hell? I'm actually blanking on how the Purity ended. He wakes up and something else happens, but then the story ends. I just got done watching it. I can't remember. But then, spoilers, because I didn't see this end coming, but if you like early splatter films, or like late 80s, early 90s splatter films, like Peter Jackson stuff, definitely check this out. It's not as serious as Prometheus, even though that had some humor sprinkled throughout it. The gore in this is definitely a build-up. I mean, it starts off slow with the first segment, and then it literally is like this grand finale climax at the end of the second segment. It does build up, but once you get to the hell sequence, it is just non-stop. And just when you think it can't get gorier, it gets gorier. But don't go into it thinking you're going to get another extreme German film. It's not... It's not even No Reason, but, you know, it's not necromantic or anything like that. Like Prometheus, it's just a gore film. It's just a splatter film. Other than that one quick rape scene. And I will actually say the shot on video look did help. Did help with a lot of it. Yeah, it made the opening seem like an after-school special video, and the second segment felt like it was played for laughs. But the second segment, especially the hell sequence, I do think that the low budget and the shot on video look helped it. And yeah, maybe gritty, grainy video can hide some of the imperfections of the effects, but I love gritty, grainy VHS look with just outrageous practical effects. That's why I love the original Evil Dead so much. But yeah, after Prometheus, I do to go into this one not expecting a graphically hardcore film and just expect another splatter film. And with that, I was able to have fun with it. The music also, one when the Hugo guy's being killed, but I really like the music when Peter is shooting up the heroin. It has like that almost tubular bell or chime kind of sound that a lot of 80s horror had, but also with this very drony high string guitar, almost like slide guitar kind of drug sound. Very well done. So if you like shot on video, then it's definitely worth checking out. But if you just like seeing what's out there for gore and you want to see more Peter Jackson-y type stuff, then definitely check this out. I'm not a big fan of shot on video, and I was able to have fun with this. But, so yeah, on those grounds, I can recommend it. Now, the twist in the ending that I didn't see coming was when the second story ends and we cut back to Peter, he just kind of reaches up. His sister's kind of closes her eyes, and then when he moves his arm, we see that she has a knife sticking out of her stomach. He killed her. And then he goes outside, looks up at the moon, and he just slits his wrist, almost cuts his hand all the way off, falls over and dies. So, yeah, maybe the opening was supposed to be kind of goofy and laughable to help lead into the first story, which kind of plays out that way. The second story is much darker, serious, borderline depressing, so that it leads us into this very downer of an ending. You know, it really is like the slope of feelings and tone. Where would I place this with the other two Ittenbach films I've seen? I'd probably put Premutos, this, then No Reason. 'Cause as much as I enjoyed this, Premutos was just so much fun. I might say I liked the hell sequence in this more than the kind of birthday party climax of Premutos, even though that's, you know, the most fun part of the film. But this is a movie I've known about since probably 2012 or 13, and I've always been curious about. And thankfully, with this marathon, a lot of the films I've had on my extreme wish list since 2012 or 13, I'm finally knocking off and able to finally get. And some I'm very excited to watch and finally talk about. I just don't want to say what they are yet. So yeah, that is Olaf Ittenbach's 1992 film, The Burning Moon. And stay tuned for more extreme horror reviews. This went on a lot longer than I wanted it to. I apologize for that. But as always, thank you for watching.